It's not easy to make a list of the most hated teams in baseball history. There are many things that can make baseball fans and people who don't like baseball hate a team. Most of the time, fans from a town love a team, no matter what happens or who's on the team. But we want to think bigger than that. Outside of that one city, there are plenty of reasons to hate the next 15 teams. No, we're not saying that all 25 players, the manager, the coaches, the owner, and the guys who sell hot dogs in the stands are hated or bad people. But for one reason or another, they did something that made sports fans mad. Starting off with the St. Louis Cardinals of 1967. Because Bob Gibson was such a great pitcher, every team he played against hated him. This made him a hated man in National League cities all over the United States.
1968, a 1.12 ERA, 268 strikeouts. Somehow he lost 9 games.
Yeah, I'm still mad about that.
You should be.
He was already so scary that he didn't have to throw at batters to scare them. Still, he did it, hitting 102 home runs in 17 years. He wasn't exactly popular after that, but Gibson's Cardinals teams in 1967 also had a few players with a mixed MLB history.
One away in the 5th, Gibson hammers a long drive to center. The ball lands on a ledge just to the right of the flagpole. It's a home run.
Roger Maris was a member of that club. He had just broken Babe Ruth's famous single-season home run record 6 years before. Steve Carlton, a young lefty, was known to have a bad PR image because he didn't like the press. Since his team beat the Boston Red Sox in the World Series in 7 games, ending their impossible dream season, many people in New England had a reason to hate this club. Maybe this is a bit of a hate for the past, but any team with Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco has to be hated, right? Even back then, some people found the Bash Brothers and their unique high five after a home run annoying. But you didn't just hate this team because of McGwire and Canseco. Rickey Henderson was pretty bold when it came to promoting himself. Since the A's won the World Series during the terrible earthquake, everything about that win was strange.
Life easy for them tonight. That's a ground ball to the right side, speared by Phillips, flips to Eckersley. Yes, he's there in time, and the A's are the world champions.
Now, let's talk about the 2003 Detroit Tigers. There was nothing about the players or manager Alan Trammell that made them hard to like, but it's hard to be liked when you have the worst record since the Mets expanded in 1962. The Tigers were a proud team, even though they hadn't made the playoffs since 1987, so that season was a letdown. In their first 18 games, they lost 17 of them, were shut out 16 times, and gave up 10 or more runs 21 times. That means they had to spend a long summer in Detroit where they were hated. The other 13 cities in the American League should have really liked this team. Even though that Tigers team from 2003 was bad, the Orioles team from 15 years earlier was worse. Cal Ripken Jr. and Eddie Murray were both popular players, but losing the first 21 games of the season makes a team a laughingstock. This couldn't have gone over well with fans of a team. They had won the World Series 5 years before. Oh, and Cal Ripken's brother Billy posed for his famous baseball card during that 1988 season. Google it.
The Baltimore Orioles finally did it. Last night in Chicago, they beat the White Sox 9-0 to end the losing streak at 21.
Next, the 1997 Chicago White Sox. This team's fans should be mad at Ron Schuler, the general manager, and Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner. Less than 2 years earlier, Reinsdorf would watch as his Chicago Bulls team fell apart. On July 1st, his other team, the White Sox, were only 1 game behind the leaders in the AL Central. Still, over the next month, the Sox started a famous fire sale. Over the next few weeks, they traded away Harold Baines, Danny Darwin, Tony Penna, Darren Lewis, Wilson Alvarez, and Roberto Hernandez. The infamous white flag sale helped Chicago finish the season with a 27-28 record and helped Cleveland win the AL Central for the 3rd year in a row. The 1996 Baltimore Orioles were a team to remember. Don't think about the fact that this team's leadoff hitter was Brady Anderson, who hit some 50 home runs out of the blue.
Who was DHing and who you saw in the beginning of the highlights. Brady Anderson again, bottom of the 5th, makes it 2-0 Orioles, taking Oral Hershiser's fastball out of the park, second of the series for Brady, 2-0.
Or that one of their starters was David Wells. Or that Rafael Palmeiro was their most powerful hitter. In late September, Roberto Alomar, the 1996 Gold Glove All-Star second baseman for the Orioles, spat in an umpire's face during a game. Even the fact that Cal Ripken had just broken Lou Gehrig's streak a year before didn't keep people from hating this team. The second World Series win for the Boston Red Sox since 1918 wasn't nearly as magical as the first. Boston was no longer the David who beat Goliath, and it wasn't a bunch of idiots with a cowboy-up attitude. It was the very unlikable J.D. Drew, two very expensive newcomers in Daisuke Matsuzaka and Josh Beckett. At this point, Boston was almost indistinguishable from the evil Empire Yankees, and the more outspoken Curt Schilling. And after almost a decade, Manny Ramirez's antics were getting old, and he was soon going to be kicked out of Boston. Putting a lot of money into free agents in 1992, Bobby Bonilla and Eddie Murray weren't even close to being enough for the Mets to be taken seriously. Trading away popular players like Hubie Brooks and Kevin McReynolds for Brat Saberhagen wasn't a good idea either, who only made 15 starts. Dave Cone had been their best pitcher for a long time. Sending him to the Blue Jays, who won the World Series, didn't make Shea fans happy either. If this kind of trading and overspending on stars who are past their prime was to be the Mets' future, which it was, it's hard not to hate this team. We can't forget about the 2002 San Francisco Giants. Barry Bonds, setting the record for most home runs in a single season a year earlier, was bad enough for the millions of fans who didn't like him before the Balco scandal. But the other NL MVP on the team, Jeff Kent, wasn't very popular either. Not only did he get into a fight in the dugout that year, but he also broke his wrist while riding a motorcycle and lied about it by saying he fell while washing his truck. 6 outs away from beating the Angels and winning the World Series in Game 6, it was hard to believe that those two would win. This was especially true after Bonds hit 8 home runs in just 45 at-bats, putting to rest the idea that he wasn't good in the clutch. Oh, and it's pretty bad to let the manager's 3-year-old son serve as a bat boy, and then see him run onto the field during a play. If JT Snow didn't come to the rescue, this team would go from being hated to being grossly negligent. The 1997 Marlins won the World Series in a way that had never been done before. They signed players like Bobby Bonilla, Devin White, Moses Alou, Gary Sheffield, Alex Fernandez, and others who were free agents or had bid contracts. Not only that, but their fans didn't seem to care either. Fans of the Chicago Cubs, the Boston Red Sox, and especially the Cleveland Indians, who the Marlins beat in the World Series, thought that city didn't deserve to win.
A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series.
Last, the 2007 New York Yankees. It doesn't really matter that Roger Clemens hadn't been called a steroid user yet. Many people didn't like him after 24 seasons. Or the fact that Andy Pettitte didn't say he used steroids until the following year. Jason Giambi had already said he used performance-enhancing drugs. Alex Rodriguez hadn't done the same thing yet, but he didn't have to in order for many people across the country to hate him. Then there was Carl Pavano, who was a free agent and got paid $10 million to play in just 2 games. Joe Torre, who was liked by most people, also lost his job because of that team. And there you have it. That was our list of the most hated teams in baseball history. See you next time.